Most hauntings are impossible to ignore. You hear door slams, footsteps that echo down an empty hallway. Someone hears their name when no one else is around. But the stories coming out of Belhurst Castle, they're a little different. People describe seeing a woman in white walking the third floor halls. She doesn't speak, she doesn't react when she's noticed. In fact, witnesses often say she seems completely unaware of them. Some have watched her walk down the hallway and then disappear before reaching the end of it. Others thought she was a guest and only realized something was wrong when she was suddenly gone. And the strange part is that these reports haven't faded in time. They followed the castle through renovations, ownership changes, and decades of visitors. So tonight we're opening the ghost file on the White Lady of Belhurst Castle. Welcome back to the Dark Folio, your creepy little coffee break. I'm May, and around here we spend our time digging into ghost stories, folklore, local legends, strange encounters, and the kind of mysteries that tend to linger long after the facts run out. Before we get started, a quick note. Every story I cover is researched using the best sources I can find. But once you step into the world of folklore and the paranormal, things can get a little messy. Stories change over time, witnesses remember things differently. Sometimes the facts and the legends become so tangled up together that it's impossible to separate one from the other. So I'm not here to tell you what to believe. I'm just here to share the story. You can decide for yourself what lives in the shadows. All right, let's get to it. Belhurst Castle sits right at the edge of Seneca Lake in Geneva, New York. It has these stone walls, heavy, that are built to last. You can tell just by looking at it that whoever built this place really wanted it to outlive them. In 1885, a woman named Carrie M. Young Heron Collins, yes, it's a very long name, bought the property. By all accounts, she had an iron will, and she set out to build what is one of the most striking landmarks in the Finger Lakes. It took architects Fuller and Wheeler 4 years to finish it. A Romanesque revival castle, complete with arched windows and towering turrets, and it was done in 1889. A lot of people don't know that the castle may have earned its reputation for bad luck before a single guest ever checked in. During construction, one worker reportedly fell from the tower and died. Another is said to have gone insane while working on the roof. So, depending on who you ask, Belhurst wasn't just built to look haunted. Something might have already gone wrong before it was even finished. This wasn't a modest lakeside retreat. The castle was built to make an impression. Like I said, heavy stone walls. Even now, standing in front of it, it's hard not to imagine the statement that it must have made in 1889. But, buildings have a way of collecting stories that their builders never intended. Over the years, Belhurst changed hands more than once, and every new chapter left something behind. In the early 30s, right in the middle of Prohibition, Belhurst became a speakeasy and a casino under a man named Cornelius, nicknamed Red Dwyer. Hidden liquor, high-stakes card games, secrets behind heavy doors, that kind of place. Later, it was a restaurant and then a hotel, and today it's the winery and inn that most people visit. In fact, Belhurst was officially added to New York State's Haunted History Trail. So this isn't just something local staff whisper about. It is recognized enough that the State Tourism Board has put its name on it. Through every version of this building, one thing stuck around. People said they felt watched. Now, like a lot of historic places, the real history and the ghost stories have gotten pretty tangled together here. So what I'm about to tell you comes from a mix of documented accounts, staff testimony, published local research, and lot of lore that's been passed around for a very long time. Long before Belhurst became known for weddings and weekend getaways, caretakers and overnight staff were already swapping stories. They talked about footsteps in empty corridors, lights that seemed to turn themselves back on, and on the upper floors, a woman dressed in white moving quietly from room to room. Most descriptions are surprisingly similar. She doesn't interact with anyone, she doesn't seem startled when she's seen, and people often describe feeling a heaviness afterward. Not exactly fear, but a lingering sadness that's difficult to explain. And most of the sightings are pretty consistent. They mostly happen on the third floor. They're almost always at late at night or in the hours just before dawn, and they're almost always near the guest rooms rather than the busier parts of the castle. But her range isn't limited to the hallways. Some guests have claimed to have seen her out on the front lawn, standing perfectly still, staring at the lake. Others describe something stranger, which is an apparition seeming to fly in through an upstairs window, like she's arriving rather than just appearing. Housekeeping has found beds messed up in rooms that nobody was staying in, doors unlocked that were locked the night before, and that smell, rose, maybe a lily, hanging in the hallway long after everyone's gone to bed. One staff member actually walked toward her once, thinking she was a lost guest who needed help. She was gone before they got close. No sound, no warning, just not there anymore. All right, let's pause here for a second because I have to take a quick moment and celebrate something. And it's something I want to celebrate with you guys. This is episode number 30, and it's also the 1 year anniversary of the Dark Folio. First of all, how in the heck did that happen? A year ago, I sat down with a microphone and extreme love of weird stories and absolutely no idea where any of this would lead. And somehow, here we are. I genuinely love doing this. I love researching these stories, coming up with new topics to discuss with you, digging into the history, and sharing all of the weird details that I find along the way. So much so that sometimes these scripts get rewritten over and over and over because I find a new little detail or a new little tidbit and I think, that's so cool. I got to share that with them. I got to let them know about this and see what they think. So every time someone tells me that they listen while they're driving to work or they're walking their dog or folding laundry or drinking their morning coffee, it absolutely makes my day. That's why I call it my creepy little coffee break, because it's just a little moment I get to share with you. So thank you. Thank you for giving this little podcast a chance. Thank you for coming back week after week, and thank you for spending part of your time with me in the darker corners of history and folklore. And if you're new here and you're into this kind of thing, folklore, hauntings, the quieter corner of the paranormal world, do me a favor and follow the Dark Folio wherever you're listening right now. A rating or a review genuinely helps other people find the show. I'm always looking at my analytics and I find that people are finding it mostly on Spotify just by browsing for podcasts like this. So when you leave a good review or a good rating, it makes them want to click faster on a podcast like mine. And if you want to talk theories or find out what's coming next, find some little interesting extra tidbits, come look us up on Facebook. Just search the Dark Folio podcast. And here's to year 2. Who knows what's lurking in the shadows, just ready for me to explore and discuss with you. Okay, back to the castle. Nobody's ever officially identified her. Actually, nobody's ever been able to identify her with any certainty at all. But that has not stopped people from trying. And what's interesting is that even the official version depends on who's telling it. The most common version is that local tradition gives her a name, Isabella. The story goes that she was an opera singer caught up in a doomed love affair with a man some accounts call Spanish Don. Supposedly, they tried to escape through a tunnel underneath the castle, running for the shore of Seneca Lake, away from her jealous husband. And the tunnel collapsed while they were still inside. Isabella never made it out. But then there's another version, and it's darker. Local author David Sackmeister spent enough time on this legend to write an entire book about it called The Belhurst Story. In his account, the woman is named Isabella Robinson, and her partner isn't a mysterious Spanish Don. He's William Henry Buck, a man who worked as a treasurer at London's Covent Garden Theatre, and allegedly embezzled money before fleeing to America with Isabella. In this version, it's not a jealous husband chasing them through that tunnel towards a waiting boat. It's the authorities. Sackmeister claims that during his own stay at Belhurst, he and his wife actually saw the lady in white on the lawn below their window, which is what pushed him to dig into her story in the first place. So, depending on which telling you believe, Isabella died running from a scandal of the heart or running from the law. Either way, the tunnel collapsed, the water was right there, and she never got out. And is there a photo? Well, here's something that'll give you chills. Local historian Elizabeth Mayette says she has personally seen a photograph that a guest claims to have taken of the lady in white. No confirmation, no verified source. Nothing you can point at and say, there, that right there, there's proof. Just someone's word that the picture exists. Whether the photograph exists or not is impossible to verify, but stories about it have circulated for years, so I wanted to throw it out there. There are other theories. Not everyone buys the Isabella story, though. Some think she might go back further. Maybe someone connected to the Collins family, living a quiet, secluded life on the grounds. The way she moves through the space, so calm, so familiar. It doesn't feel like she's intruding. It feels like that she actually belongs there. Or maybe it's not her at all. Paranormal researchers tend to lean toward a different idea, that this isn't really a spirit making a choice to stay. It's a residual haunting, a moment of grief that got stuck, playing itself back over and over and over, worn into the stone by time. And if that's true, nobody's actually being watched. What guests are seeing is more like an echo, a memory that never figured out how to let go. More recently, paranormal investigators have gone through Belhurst with their equipment, and they've picked up temperature drops that don't make sense, EMF spikes with no obvious source, and footsteps with nobody walking around. And it's not just Isabella putting on a show. Staff have reported showers turning themselves on and off in empty guest rooms. Bottles and glasses in the bar have reportedly moved or flown on their own. And then there's one story that is really interesting. A tablecloth was found tied to a chandelier with no explanation for how it got there. If those reports are accurate, they don't fit into the idea of a residual haunting, like I just mentioned, no echo. That is something more active. And that tablecloth and chandelier thing, if that's a hoax, well, someone had to do a lot of work to get up there to do that. But even with all of that, people say there's no aggression to any of it. There appears to be no hostility. If anything, people say that it feels calm in there, like whatever's present is just sharing the space with you. And Isabella isn't the only one that people talk about. There's also Red Dwyer's era, and a bartender and a manager named Dick O'Brien, who passed away in 1972. Guests still say that they catch the smell of cigar smoke in the bar out of nowhere. Some say they've seen him walking up the stairs or sitting in what staff have started calling his favorite chair, like he's still got a regular spot decades later. Still, it is Isabella, the woman in white, who people keep coming back to. And the thing about Isabella that I think makes her even more interesting is she's not really a one-off. If you are a fan of ghost stories, the woman in white is one of the oldest, most repeated ghost stories on Earth. Almost every region, every culture has some version of her. In Mexico, there's La Llorona, the weeping woman, wandering riverbanks, searching forever for the children that she lost. In Chicago, there's Resurrection Mary, a woman in a white gown who hitchhikes along Archer Avenue and vanishes right near the gates of Resurrection Cemetery. In the Philippines, drivers still tell stories about the White Lady of Ballet Drive, said to appear on the road at night. In England, there's the Brown Lady of Raynham Hall, famous because she's allegedly one of the only ghosts ever caught on camera back in 1936. And in France, the old Bourbon royal family had their own White Lady, said to appear right before a member of the family was about to die. And it's fascinating how often this story appears. The details change, the names change. Sometimes the setting's a castle, sometimes it's road, sometimes it's a riverbank. But the image always is remarkably consistent. There's always a woman in white connected to loss, tragedy, or some type of unfinished business. Maybe it's a coincidence, but maybe it's that certain stories survive because they speak to something that people recognize no matter where they live. So when you hear about Isabella walking the shore of Seneca Lake, you're not just hearing a local legend, you're hearing the Finger Lakes version of one of the oldest stories that people have ever told to each other in the dark. What keeps drawing people back to this story is how quiet it is. The White Lady isn't reported as violent like some ghost stories. She doesn't chase anyone through the halls like in a scary movie. She doesn't seem interested in frightening guests. She just appears. Maybe she's connected to one of the stories people have told about Belhurst for generations. Maybe what witnesses are seeing is something else entirely. Whatever the explanation, sightings of the woman in white have become part of the castle's identity. Ask enough staff members, guests, or locals about Belhurst, and eventually her name will come up. And if you ever find yourself walking those halls late at night, keep an eye out on the corridor ahead. You never know who might be sharing the building with you. Thank you for spending this time with me, my kindred spirits. I'm May, and this has been the Dark Folio. I have much love going out to all of you around the world listening to me now. Year 2 is going to be fabulous, I promise. So, stay curious, and as always, stay a little dark.